Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. It is Monday morning, coming off the back of a really important win to put us in prime position to go for Champions League football this season. Although this morning I'm waking up to a number of messages. I'm logging onto Twitter and I see that a lot of people are not happy with Erik ten Hag and his style of football. We're going to get into all of that debate and the debate about Manchester United and where do we go from here. But first and foremost, as you can see through the thumbnail and the title, we got some news coming in late last night that Dan Ashworth is asked to leave Newcastle, but Newcastle aren't happy about it and want a big payout from Manchester United, or else he'll be on gardening leave for a long time. We'll get into the details of that. What do you think Manchester United should do? Should they pay the money? Should they wait it out? We'll get into the discussion of what we think will happen with that. But thank you everyone for joining us on the show this morning. Happy Monday. And you wouldn't think we won yesterday, would you, from some of the comments that are going on online? People don't like it. People don't like it. And honestly, yeah, our football wasn't champagne football, but we got a good result, and that's what it is at the end of the day. And we're going to talk about, is it sustainable? Where do we go from here? Because I understand people's concerns, but I think we've just got to be happy the position that we're in the table, considering how poorly we started the season. But let's talk about Dan Ashworth first and foremost. Then we'll move on to a little bit of news about the Luton game last night, have a bit of a debate, maybe bring in some of Erik ten Hag's comments that came out late last night. But coming in from David Ornstein last night, David Ornstein's been very good recently. I mean, he's always been good, but he's been very good, especially on a lot of Man United stuff at the moment. So he said that Dan Ashworth has been placed on gardening leave by Newcastle, follows request to leave as sporting director and join Manchester United. Newcastle United want 20 million, 52-year-old on full pay. Man United ready to wait as don't intend to pay what they deem an unrealistic sum. There's also been a report out from The Times. The Times have said that it's going to be 15 million for Ashworth. That's what Newcastle want. Whether it's 20 million or whether it's 15 million, both sums are ridiculous for a sporting director. Now, this is Newcastle sort of throwing the toys out of the pram and being like, you can't take our sporting director, we're going to make you pay for it. And you know what? He has a contract with Newcastle for a further, I think it's for a further 20 months. 20 months is his contract with Newcastle, how long he's got left. That's how long he'd be on garden leave. 20 months is a long time. It's just under 2 years. So Manchester United need to make a decision. And Newcastle can very well say to Manchester United, well, you're not having it. You're not having him unless you pay. He's going to go on gardening leave. But the one thing that you can say here is it'd be very silly of Newcastle to have a sporting director, Dan Ashworth, on that much pay, that much money, and him not doing his job for Newcastle. Why would you be paying someone purely so they don't go to Manchester United? But they're not working for you purely so they don't go to Manchester United. I don't think Man United will end up paying 20 million. I don't think they'll end up paying 15 million. I think what should happen is the two clubs should have a discussion, they should compromise, and I think Man United will end up paying a compensation fee, but it won't be as high as them figures. This is just Newcastle throwing the toys out the pram. Discussions haven't been had. Apparently they're frustrated with the way that Manchester United have handled the situation. I mean, Sir Jim and Sir Dave Brailsford aren't messing about. It's not the old Man United where we just sit back and relax and let everyone take the mick out of us. We are on the prowl now to make an excellent team, and nobody's getting in our way. Newcastle aren't our friends, they're our competitors. So Sir Jim wants Dan Ashworth wants to go to Manchester United, and I think it's good that he's made it clear to Newcastle that he wants to come to the club. Obviously, if he's going to come to the club, he's going to have to make it clear to them that he wants to leave, but it's how much that did he settle on a fee on. I think there'll be a bit of back and forth. This is just Newcastle playing hardball and kind of just being frustrated at the situation, which they're going to be. They're losing an excellent director of football, and Man United are gaining an excellent director of football. The last thing we need, though, is this going on for a long period of time. I don't think there's a chance that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sir Dave Brailsford sit there and think, yeah, we'll wait for 20 months with Dan Ashworth on gardening leave. That won't happen. And Newcastle aren't going to sit there and pay Dan Ashworth 20 million or 15 million quid to not do a job for them. So they will come to a compromise. It's just, how long is it going to take? Because we need a sporting director in now. But I understand not wanting to pay 20 million because it is a lot of money. But then part of me, on the other hand, was like, when it first came out last night, now I've thought about it, like 20 million is ridiculous to pay out for a director of football. But when you genuinely think about it, and don't think about it in terms of how much a director of football is paid or how much you pay for a director of football, and you don't think about it in terms of positions in football, and you just think about how it's going to benefit Manchester United, how it's going to benefit us as a club, like, just pay the money. Like, honestly, just pay the money. Like, Dan Ashworth's probably going to save us that on his first deal he does at Manchester United. He's going to be so important. I mean, he is an elite director of football with an elite track record, and Newcastle are gutted to be losing him. I mean, they've shut off his computer. We'll get onto that in a second. But we need to build this now. Ten Hag needs a director of football now to be planning for the summer. We can't afford to wait around. Newcastle probably know that. We need to build this team. We've already got Omar Barada. We're going to be getting the sporting director. We're going to be getting head of recruitment. We're going to be building this team. We need Dan Ashworth to be there at the forefront of that now. And I know people say, well, you can still do emails, you can still have phone calls. It's not the same. It's not the same as being in a job. So I think 20 million is ridiculous, and I don't think we'll end up paying that amount of money. But if we do have to pay a compensation fee, let's agree on a fee. And if it is overpriced, and it's going to be, let's just bite the bullet and do it, because we've wasted, like, think about the amount of money we've wasted on transfers in the past. We overpaid about 40 million for Anthony. I mean, we've overpaid on so many players, overpaid on wages. 10 million, it's a lot to pay for a director of football, but in the grand scheme of the money that Man United have wasted, and in the grand scheme of the money that Sir Jim has to spend, I think it's definitely worth it. We'll earn it back. In the first summer of Dan Ashworth's reign, we'll earn it back from what he can do for us. So I think it's important that we get this done, and we don't hang around with it. But getting your comments on what you guys think. I saw someone last night saying we shouldn't be handing Newcastle money in times like this. They're our competitors, and obviously they're in financial difficulty. And I'm like, well, they're not actually in financial difficulty. They're very rich. They're just struggling with FFP. But we're taking their director of football. I mean, that is huge. We're not doing him any favours, trust me on that. Western Philpott says it's worth paying. He will save it on the first deal. Tired of getting the worst end of every deal. Exactly. Lee says, morning Beth, hope you're well. You read my message wrong last night. I said I was happy with the win. Personally, right now, to me, a win is a win. Lee, sorry about that. It's because there's so many super chats coming through on the forum. But yeah, a win is a win. Results come first. I get why people are frustrated with the style of play. I've had Faz on the WhatsApp all morning. Me and we're having a bit of a back and forth in the WhatsApp chat. It was all going off in the United Stand WhatsApp chat. Should I leak the messages this morning about Erik ten Hag and just the debate on what's going on right now? And I mean, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on, but yeah, a lot to talk about in terms of the football. Someone in the comments just said there's a black screen. I hope not. I hope there's not a black screen. I should be with you guys. But I see a lot of people in the chat saying worth paying. Everybody in the comments getting your opinions as well. People, should we run a poll? Let's run a poll on would you pay out the 15 million to Newcastle right now for Dan Ashworth to just get him now? I think the majority of people would say yes, but I'd just be interested to see a consensus on that. I don't think it'll be, like Ornstein said 20, the Times have said 15. I think we'll end up doing about 10. But in terms of how Newcastle have handled this as well, this is coming in from the Times too, that Dan Ashworth's computer and scouting access has been blocked as of today. Newcastle want 15 million or else he will be on a 20-month period of gardening leave. So basically, the reports that have come out around Dan Ashworth is that on his computer, I mean, this is like, it's like on one of them, it's like a prized possession, this computer. I mean, does it get locked in a safe every night with about 15 different bolts on it? It's like someone should make a film out of just getting this computer that's got everything on it. Dan Ashworth's computer's got a huge reputation, but apparently on this computer, Dan Ashworth has scouting from every single angle of aspect across nearly every single talent in Europe. He's got a huge database covering age, culture, attributes, just every aspect of different players, the price, the contracts, everything on up-and-coming talent throughout Europe. And apparently he's super meticulous. He's got a huge wealth of knowledge on the recruitment across Europe and the different leagues. And that is why Manchester United are going for him, because he's best in class. And Newcastle apparently have shut off his computer and his scouting access has been blocked. I mean, talk about sour grapes, everyone. I mean, sour grapes. I mean, I get it because Newcastle don't want they see us as competitors, don't they? We have been competing for the same point in the table like last year and this year that they are below us, but we have been competing. But in terms of cutting off his computer and blocking his scouting access, sour grapes. But at the same time, I sort of understand it, because if somebody was taking our director of football that was absolutely brilliant and knew all of our plans and for the summer transfer window and had access to this amazing data that gives you brilliant insight on transfers, on everything, of all the up-and-coming talents in Europe, everything you'd want, it's like a gold mine. I would understand why you wouldn't want that going to a rival club. I mean, Newcastle they have this thing about us, don't they? And ever since they tweeted that picture of who's that team they called United, they've been on a bit of a bad run of it. I think Eddie Howe's done a good job with Newcastle, but realistically, at the end of the day, it's the same reason why Dan Ashworth's coming to Manchester United. They're not on the same level as Manchester United in terms of what they can do in a transfer window, in terms of what sort of players they can attract, in terms of what their ceiling is. They've got massively rich owners that have started this huge process and huge rebuild, and they're doing a very good job, and where they've gone to and where they are now is amazing. But at the end of the day, Dan Ashworth is going to want to leave Newcastle to go to Manchester United. It's Manchester United. They're a bigger club than Newcastle, and they've got more to offer in the long term, despite how poor we've been. So, I mean, I don't see it as an issue that his scouting access has been blocked. Dan Ashworth will have huge files on this. He'll have so much knowledge on this already, and that's why we've gone to him. Dan Ashworth wasn't nothing before he went to Newcastle's scouting access and computer access. He's had a brilliant career before he went to Newcastle, and it's not the end of the world. It's just where we're at now. It's like, it's like me leaving the United stand and suddenly all my access to Y Scout's been shut off. I mean, it's a very different situation, but it's similar. We look at Y Scout when we're doing shows, when I'm researching players that we're in transfers for. Everyone will know, I think most people know what Y Scout is. You have to pay a subscription and you can see like detailed analysis on different players. I use that to look at like the Tadibos, the Frimpongs. When you're doing research for a player, you have access to a lot of their games and stuff like that. It's like me leaving United stand and suddenly that's cut off. I mean, okay, yeah, it's frustrating, but it doesn't mean you're not going to be able to do it at a different place or when you move on with your career. Not leaving United stand, by the way, but it's a comparison on a very small scale. I'm not calling myself Dan Ashworth. I mean, a lot of you guys will say I'm not with my Anana scouting track record, but in terms of cutting off the computer, I mean, it's just is what it is, isn't it? Just makes for reporting and a bit of gossip. Would you pay 15 million for Ashworth? Yes or no in the chat. I mean, for me, it's an absolute no-brainer. Think about the amount of money we have genuinely wasted over the years. 50 million on something that's genuinely going to improve us and is going to kick-start this new era with someone who has an absolute wealth of knowledge. We need this transfer window to go well. We can't afford to wait 20 months for future transfer windows to go well. And Ten Hag must be thinking, pay the money. Pay the money, because he needs this transfer window to go well. A lot is riding on this transfer window. We are behind a lot of clubs because we have made poor recruitments in the past. We can't afford for it to go wrong anymore. It's gone wrong too many times, and not every transfer is going to succeed. Liverpool, City, Arsenal have all our transfers that don't succeed, but we need them to succeed because we're far behind. I mean, even Spurs this summer made some really good strides in terms of their recruitment. So we have to have it go well, and that's why we need Dan Ashworth in. Robert McCormack Beth says, morning Beth, get Ashworth done now. Dave Gwill says, that's the same amount of dividends the Glazers take. Exactly, just compare it to that. David Gwill, exactly. I mean, the Glazers last time, how many dividends did they take? Was it around... I think it was it around, I don't know why, but 11 million is striking in my mind of dividends that they took. Might have been more than that. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, come on. Matt says, Newcastle being petty is funny considering this is what they did to Brighton. They love the idea of rivalry with us until we come knocking. Exactly, Matt. And the thing is, I know they love a rivalry with us, and I get it. Who's that team you call United? All that sort of stuff. I mean, it's not been going well for them since that tweet went out. But
I think Eddie Howe's doing a great job, and I think they're a good team. But in terms of the rival with United, it's forced. It's not there because we are a bigger club than them. And that's not me being like, you know, having a bit of banter. Like, it's just genuinely true. It's like how, for example, it's like how they went and got Dan Ashworth from Brighton. If you were at Brighton and Newcastle came knocking, you'd go to Newcastle because it's a bigger opportunity. It's a bigger club. And I like Brighton as well. It's just the football pyramid. It's just the way it is, like the way like the levels go up. But thank you everyone for your super chats. People are laughing at me saying Eddie Howe's doing a great job. Not as late. I think he has been doing a great job, and I think he should be. This isn't the Newcastle TV, but I think he should stay as manager. But I think he's done a very good job there. They've been poor this season though, but I'm not getting into Newcastle. Pat says, how much was Sancho? Spend this, please. Exactly. So that's the updates on Dan Ashworth. But I want to talk now. I want to move on to a little bit about Man United against Luton last night and kind of just going through the game from yesterday. And I'm not talking about what we did on the fan forum or what Matt did in his final score, but just talking a little bit about the aftermath of that game. And a lot of people aren't happy with the way we played yesterday. And I'm going to be honest, I wasn't happy with the way we played. I don't think it's sustainable. But you've got to put this into context. We're unbeaten in 2024. We're unbeaten in 6 games. We are 3 points behind. Ange's the best manager that this league has ever seen. They're going to win the league. We should have got Maddison over Mount. We should have done this. We should have done that. Spurs. We're 3 points behind them. And okay, yeah, they've had injuries, but we've had terrible injuries. People say, well, they have a better style of football. We're 3 points behind them, okay? We're 3 points behind them. Ten Hag has had everything behind the scenes to deal with. The Sancho stuff, the Greenwood stuff, the ownership stuff. We've had no money in the January transfer window. Spurs actually did go and get Timo Werner. We've had no money in the January transfer window. And we are on a project here of rebuilding a club and a team that has been neglected and ran into the ground for over a decade by a terrible ownership. People expect us to come out and play prime Barcelona football. Like, we've sacked a manager, 5 or 6 times now, and nothing's changed. Erik ten Hag has got the highest win rate of any Man United manager. He also has the highest loss rate. That's fair enough. But am I happy with the football we're playing right now? No. And I'm very much Ten Hag in. Can I see positive signs like the youth within Kobbie Mainoo, Højlund and Garnacho? Yes. Can I see glimpses of what we could have? When we had, for like 2 games, we had Erik ten Hag's full-strength team back and we saw glimpses. Also, people need to take into context. People will say, oh, we let Luton dominate us. Has anyone watched Luton this season? Because, okay, yeah, they're towards the bottom of the table, but they've been very, very good at home, especially against the big sides in the league. And they do like to have a lot of the ball. That's the way they play. I mean, to put it into context, Luton home record this season. Top of the table Liverpool, they drew 1-1 with them at home, Kenilworth Road. 4-3, Arsenal beat them with a last-minute Declan Rice winner. And Arsenal celebrated like they'd won the league. Do you remember it? City beat them 2-1. City are the best team in the league, in my opinion. And they beat Newcastle, who were a good team as well, 1-0. Also, they ended up battering Brighton 4-0. So Luton have been good at home this season. Man United should have gone on to win that game 3 or 4-1. I agree with you. But I also give Luton credit there where it could have ended in a draw because they had a couple of chances and they did dominate possession. But in terms of, I wouldn't say dominate possession, but they had a lot of possession. But in terms of big chances they created, does anybody remember Onana making a proper big save or having to make a lot of saves? Anyone remember that? The only thing that I remember is the Ross Barkley header in the last minute. What I do remember is Bruno having 2 chances that he could have scored, Rashford having a few shots that he made quite well for himself, Garnacho missed an absolute sitter where he should have scored it, Dalot was in at one point when he could have took it round the keeper, but I mean it was like, can we take the ball round Kaminsky challenge? Only Højlund succeeded. Højlund had a chance. Remember when it was kind of bobbling in the box and he tried to like dink it and it didn't end up going in. We had multiple chances to put that game to bed. Is it Ten Hag's fault that we couldn't finish them chances yesterday? But there's also drawbacks. We gave away a lot of transition opportunities. We actually allowed Luton 72 transition opportunities, third highest total for a team in the Premier League game this season. That's not acceptable. But we are playing transition football right now. We're not playing it well because some of the basics are wrong. Casemiro's getting left isolated. We don't have the personnel, I think, to completely pull it off. We're sitting a little bit too deep still if you want to play that transition football. That's why a lot of the times it's not working. We're giving the ball away way too cheaply. Way too cheaply. The stuff I can get into. So absolutely it's not perfect, and it's very far from perfect, and we could get punished playing this sort of football, but I don't think Ten Hag wants to play this sort of football long term. The reason I don't think he wants to play it long term is because we've seen him not play this sort of football for glimpses recently when we had a full strength team. His system is massively reliant on individuals, and that also could be a negative, but it also means that we need to invest in similar individuals that suit his system in the summer. But also the way he speaks after games, his previous history, track record as a manager, I don't think he wants to continue this basketball type football. I think he's doing it to get by. At the end of the day, we had Lindelof playing left back. Johnny Evans, by the way, was rock solid. He was superb. He was amazing when he came on. But you wouldn't say you'd be Ten Hag's first choice, sort of centre-back. You look at your left side of the fence, you have Lindelof and Evans. Lindelof's a right-footed left-back. Johnny Evans is doing a super job for us, but you would never have thought he'd be playing this many games at the start of the season. I mean, we've got things that need to improve. Absolutely massively do. Strikers are missing, not just strikers, but players are missing chances all over the pitch. I don't think Ten Hag wants to continue with this football. I hope he doesn't anyway, because I don't think it is sustainable. But in terms of what we're doing right now is we're getting results. We're grinding out results, and that's what we need, because with results becomes the opportunity of Champions League football, which we have to get. With Champions League football, we have a bigger budget in the summer for Ten Hag to spend money on improving this squad to actually get it to a point where we can play the style of play he wants to play. I'm going to be honest, this is just my personal opinion. I think Ten Hag underestimated what he would need to play the style that he wants to. I think his style massively relies on individual attributes and individual qualities. Martinez is huge for it. Luke Shaw is huge for it. I actually think we need a midfielder that is suited to his play. I think Casemiro is obviously got qualities, but I think we need another holding midfielder that's probably got a bit more legs than Casemiro, to be honest with you. I think there's other things that we need. There's quite a few things we need. I think we need, even though Garnacho's doing so well, and he's predominantly a left winger, isn't he? I think we need a right winger who is creative, and I think Ten Hag thought Anthony was that, but it's not turned out to be, so we're going to have to go again. I think there's a lot of things we need to do. I think our bench isn't good enough. Once you fall away from our starting 11, you look to the bench and you think, what really is there? The drop-off is massive. So there's so many things that need improving, and this is why Rome wasn't built in the day, and this is why we're in a rebuild right now. I don't know what certain people are expecting. We're midway through a season. You're not just going to start seeing, unreal champagne football. I mean, top of the league, Liverpool drew 1-1 at home to Luton this season, and they've been fantastic. No top team's gone to Luton and battered them. So I think there's so many things that we can talk about, but in terms of yesterday, I think we just need to be happy with the result. We can think about the football. I'm absolutely on board with, let's get results till the end of the season. Give Ten Hag the summer with, this is going to be the first time at Manchester United, by the way, that Ten Hag will have had a director of football, a proper CEO, and a structure behind him, hopefully, if everything goes to plan with the appointments. Let's back him this summer, because starting again, I think now would just be, I think it'd be the wrong move. I honestly do, but back him in the summer. Let's go into next season. If we're still not playing good football, and you still can't see it improving, and we're still playing this basketball type football, then I understand people being like, you know what, we've tried it, we've given it a go. But right now, to even think about removing Ten Hag, I just think he's the complete wrong thing to do. We're building something. You can see the signs. You can see the signs with the young players. You can see, we're starting to put some results together. I think what he's had to deal with behind the scenes has been massive. I think he just needs a little bit of time. And plus as well, The amount of injuries we've had to deal with this season it's incredible. It really is incredible. But get in your comments down below, because I know a lot of people do want to see some people do want to see a managerial change. Some people don't think this is good enough. But for me, the last thing I'd be thinking about right now is removing Ten Hag. I think we need stability. I think we need patience. Patience is a virtue. I mean, it's been a super fragmented season, and I don't have any excuse for how poor it has been, especially towards the start. But 2024, we're unbeaten. We're grinding out some results against some tough opposition. Let's see how things go until the end of the season and back in with a proper structure, and let's see how this style progresses. We've sacked managers multiple times before. What has changed? Like, let's actually get behind a manager, and I think Ten Hag has got what it takes. I've seen glimpses of it, really small glimpses, but I have seen them. So that's where I'm stood at the moment, and I stand on that. I stand there, and I will honestly, I'm on that hill right now, and that's my opinion, and I'm backing it. But in terms of just why we are giving away so much possession and why we are giving away turnovers so cheaply, a big part of this, and Mark tweeted out this morning, I see so many comments all the time saying, you just repeat what Mark says. We have so many different opinions on a lot of things. We agree on a lot of things, but we have different opinions on a lot of things. I think Casemiro is a really important player. I think when Casemiro's playing well, he's great. And I actually would like to keep him for another season. But you can like a player and also criticise a player. Mark tweets this morning about how important Casemiro is, and that's why we're winning games, and it's not a coincidence. I'm sorry, but yesterday he was terrible. He was so poor. He had to be subbed at half time, and yeah, the first yellow should not have been a yellow. I'm in agreement with that. But he puts himself in compromising positions because he's given the ball away too much. I'm going to get on to Bruno. He does it as well. And that second one should have been a sending off, really. The first one shouldn't have been a yellow, but the second one should have been. So he got away with it. And I'm saying this because in the midfield, it strikes me, and it's sad because Casemiro, you know, he is targeted by the refs, and that shouldn't be the case. It's so unfortunate. But it's worrying to me when an 18-year-old who's just come through this season is by far our most composed player on the football, and he's our best player on the ball. Do you ever see Kobbie Mainoo give it away? Never. I see Casemiro and Bruno give it away like there's no tomorrow. And they're the experienced pros in that midfield. When we are up against it a little bit and we're trying to, you know, get a foothold in the game and just kind of get back on track, the last thing you need is experienced players. I mean, any player, but experienced players giving away the football cheaply, consistently. And that's why we're getting counter-attacked constantly by Luton, and we're giving away possession for them to just keep coming at us. It was relentless. So Kobbie Mainoo, he needs help in there, and I love Bruno. I've said how much I love Bruno. When Bruno keeps it simple, I think he's brilliant, and I can allow him to give it away sometimes because of what he can produce and what I think he gives. But recently, it has been too much. Like yesterday, it was too much. Like there's a midfield where Casemiro's this season has been dribbled past 2.9 times per 90. Second most in the Premier League, and it's up from 2.08 last season. And I'm not saying this is purely Casemiro's fault. He gets left isolated. Yesterday, I think he was left too isolated. I think Kobbie should have been a little bit deeper. Bruno should have also been a little bit deeper. And more of a unit. It's partly down to a structural thing, and that's something that Ten Hag needs to look at. But also it's because his legs are going, and he's not as agile as he used to be. A lot of the times you'll see him, you know, in a sprint back with someone, and he does commit the foul and get the yellow card, or he does just stick a leg in because he knows he can't keep up with him. That's also another one of getting dribbled past. That's not good for somebody who's going to be meant to be shielding a back four. Casemiro is a duel winner, and he's very good at it. But we need someone who's coming up with the fresh legs to kind of learn off him and take over that role, really. And then you also look to Bruno. Bruno gave the ball away yesterday 17 times. 17 times. That's too much. That's too much. And Casemiro was giving it away as well in the first half before he got taken off. You can't have 2 out of your 3 midfielders just constantly giving the ball away in the middle of the park. You're going to get punished. Teams are going to come at you. You do that against Man City and it's an absolute cricket score, like genuinely. And it's frustrating because Is it because we went 2-0 up and people got lackadaisical? Like, we were taking shots from stupid areas at that point as well. Garnacho did it, Rashford did it. I mean, more people did it. It wasn't just like Bruno and Casemiro. Was it because we got too comfortable? But that's what happened at Newport, and you're the leaders of this team. You know, we should know better than that. We shouldn't be naive. Luton are a good side. Like, give them some respect. And then you look at other senior players. I mean, that was the worst performance I've seen from Harry Maguire all season. Maguire's been great this season, but yesterday it was terrible. He lost his head. He had to get taken off at half-time. I mean, Casemiro had to get taken off at half-time, a senior pro. You've got Højlund, I mean, Garnacho didn't have his best game, but his work rate was relentless. The way he helped Dalot out, getting backwards, and the way he was always in dangerous areas was excellent. He didn't make the right decisions, but he was always in dangerous areas, and his work rate to help Dalot from stopping crosses coming in was excellent. You've got Højlund, who was just on fire. You've got Mainoo, who's like the best player in the team at the moment. You've got the senior pros not doing enough. So I think a lot of people can blame Ten Hag, but let's look at the senior pros here. We need to be better. We can't be giving the ball away that much and turning over possession. We can't be treating the football like it's a hot potato. We can't be getting dribbled past constantly and the team shape being out of position. We can't be missing chances after chances after chances. There's things that individuals in the team also need to look at themselves, not just looking straight towards Ten Hag's system. And people, you know, you ask me, like, the midfield situation, is it because of the individuals or is it because of a team structure? I think in terms of Casemiro, he is physically declining and he's losing his legs, but also he gets left isolated by the team structure. It's a mix of both. Bruno's always been loose in possession, but you've just got to know when to switch it on and off. In terms of missing chances, that's just something like, it happens. We need to be more clinical. But there's so many things that we need to take a look at, and people will say, oh, well, it's Ten Hag picks these players. Who else is he going to pick? I'm sorry, people say Eriksen. No, he doesn't have the legs to get around the pitch, especially in an away game. Mason Mount, yes. Mason Mount should be competing in this team, but he's injured, so he can't pick Mason Mount. He can't. Bruno's his captain at the end of the day. And also, you look at it and you think, should McTominay start next game? That's a question I've been asking myself. And when you're asking yourself, should McTominay start, that's when you know that players are underperforming, because you shouldn't be asking yourself that question. McTominay should be a player that comes off the bench. He's good at doing that. He shouldn't be a player that you're considering starting. But after he came on off the bench in yesterday's game, and we were actually better in the second half with him and Evans on for Maguire and Casemiro, you start thinking to yourself, well, hang on a second, Scott McTominay's earned us 12 points off the bench this season, got us the win against Villa. He came on last game and we had a better half with him and Evans in the team than Maguire and Casemiro. Does he deserve to start next game? And there are all questions I asked to you guys in the chat. Let me get into some of your chats right now to go through. A lot of people, I'm talking about Bruno, and I know this is a conversation that keeps building up. Bruno has massive positives. Bruno, on his day for me, is one of the best midfielders in the league. But he's been poor this season, and I admit that as a Bruno fan. And yesterday was unacceptable. Giving a ball away that many times, it was one of his worst games I've ever seen. Ruby Lee says Mainoo has been exposed to the rest of our midfield. I mean, Mainoo must be looking around thinking, what is going on? Am I the only player that knows how to treat a football here? Ricky Moreno says, when the team is on the defensive, Rashford is lazy and doesn't challenge for the ball, lets the other team pass by him. I need more from him. A lot of people, that clip going around of Rashford not pressing Ross Barkley yesterday, I thought about it and I thought to myself, we're in the 90th minute of a game where he's been running all game, and to be fair to him, I think he actually did get back. He's never going to be a good tackler. He's never going to be great at defensive work. It's just not him. Garnacho's better than me. Garnacho was excellent with Dalot yesterday, that side of things. But Rashford did run and he did put the work in and he did put the effort in yesterday. And I think he had a good game going forward. I think that pass through to Garnacho when he should have scored it was excellent. He created some good chances for himself, took some good shots on. Kaminsky made some good saves, dribbled through the midfield really well, passed it better. I think yesterday and at Villa were two games where he didn't get a goal or assist, but his performances were actually a lot better than usual and were good. Do I think he should have pressed Ross Barkley more in the later stages of the game? Yes, and that's something he needs to look at himself at and work on. You've got to push yourself that extra mile to give it. It's the end of the game. We have to see it out. should Ten Hag maybe have made a substitution, potentially, if Rashford's legs have gone a little bit and he was fatigued? You can look at it from that angle. I mean, a lot of our players were tired yesterday, but in terms of, is he ever going to be a proper like a winger that's good at defensive duties? No. Do we need a bit more from him? Yes. But did he have an overall good game? And I think, are people making a bit of a meal out of a molehill on that situation? I think, yeah. And I'm the first one to say that Rashford's work rate has been not good enough at the start of this season. But I think yesterday and recently his work rate's been better. That was a moment where he should have done better, but it was a moment in the game. Nigel Hurst says, why don't we look at Gavi or João Neves? João Neves, for me, I mean, I've not seen loads of him, but I've heard so much positivity about him. A midfielder that is physically able and good on the ball. I mean, him and Kobbie Mainoo, he's just exciting. He's super exciting, but he's going to cost you 100 million, and I just don't think United can afford to spend that much money on one player right now because of how much we need to rebuild and how many positions we need to go for. And Karen says, hi Beth, Dan is going to be the most important signing in a decade. We should leave no stone unturned. I thought, are we signing someone called Dan then? But then I remembered Dan Ashworth. Yeah, Karen, it's going to be huge for us, and that's why I think we should pay the money. Weston Philpott says, what do you think about wingers like Jack Clarke from Sunderland? He can possess the ball, get past defenders, and has a wicked cross. He's young and cheap. Rasmus needs service. Weston, I've not seen much of Jack Clarke because I can't say I'm watching the Championship a lot, but people I know who watch the Championship say how good he is. I've heard of him. But what I would say is the difference between the Championship and the Premier League is quite stark. You can tell that through Burnley and Sheffield United who've come up this season. Like, it is, there's quite a big gap through it at the minute. So it's not something I'd be looking at doing, but I don't think you should ever rule out the Championship. I mean, Somerville at Leeds, is doing amazing. Is it Somerville or Sinisterra? I think it's Somerville who's doing great. But for me, I don't know enough about him to comment really on that. And AS says, patience is a virtue. Preach, Beth. I do think I get it, we have been poor for a long time, but I do think fans expect stuff too quickly. Like, understand that this club has been ran terribly for years on end. It's a build-up of bad, terrible recruitment, turnover of coaches, a mix of players that are overpaid and are working for completely different systems. There's so much that you can talk about. So it's not going to be, like, it's going to be years before we get to a point where City, Arsenal and Liverpool are at. It will be. But Ten Hag, I think he's capable. We've got to put, and we've started this process now. That's why I don't want to restart it. We've started this process. We've got to invest in it and take the good with the bad, and to even get Champions League football this year after how much we were written off at the start of this season is massive. And yes, the football wasn't good yesterday overall, but realistically, if our strikers could finish and Kaminsky wasn't unbelievable, if buts and maybes, we should have won that game 3 or 4-1. So, you know, there's of course there's negatives to pick apart and there's stuff we can say we need to do better, but there's also a lot to like, and there's also glimpses of positivity going into the future of this as well. I mean, in terms of looking towards the next game as well, this is a question I wanted to ask to you guys as I have a chance to speak to you in the community. Do Evans and McTominay keep their place? And here, let me run a poll first and foremost on Evans and Maguire. Does Evans start next game over Maguire? Let me get that poll running, because honestly, I think Maguire's had a very good season for United. Recently, in the last couple of games he's played, he was really good. Not yesterday, but the last couple of games he was really good. In terms of that spell he had in around October, November time, I thought he was really good as well. Genuinely, coming off the back of the Villa game, I was like, potential for man of the match, he was that good. But yesterday, he was honestly looked like Maguire from when he was captain Maguire. He was so bad. Like, giving a ball away super cheaply again. I mean, just completely just going into challenges and getting turned and not having the pace to get back, being too reckless. Like, he wasn't good. Does Evans get his chance to come back into starting 11? Evans obviously is better on his left foot, and he was super solid when he came off the bench. Does that deserve to be rewarded? I'm not saying drop Maguire because, you know, players can have bad performances, that can happen, and he's been good for quite a while now, and he dropped a bit of a stinker yesterday. But is it warranted that Evans thinks, you know what, I came on, I made things so much more composed. Me and Varane clearly worked together really well. Like, should I be starting next game? That's a question I ask you guys. I'm going to be honest. Based purely off what I've seen yesterday, Evans for me was better. I think Maguire long term is probably better, but Evans was better yesterday for me. So why shouldn't he get that opportunity? I think Evans can do the job. We are at home to Fulham, and I think a lot of people are going into that game thinking we're going to win it. But Fulham only just got beat by Aston Villa 2-1, and that Aston Villa are a good team. Like, Fulham are not going to be an easy team to go against. We need our full strength in every single game. Every game is a cup final. People talk about, has Evans got the legs to do it? We've got a week between games. You know, I think he absolutely has the legs to do it. So would you do it? I think Evans and Varane look good together. Does Evans start next game over Maguire? You've got 68% with yes, 33% with no. So for you guys, Evans comes into the starting 11. And you know what? If it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's why, you know, you've seen Maguire start continually, because he deserved to, because he's been super good. But when things were going poorly yesterday, players come in and they make us better, and we see out a game, we win the game. Do they deserve then to have their opportunity? And this is the next poll I'm going to run. Producer, another poll going. Should McTominay start over Casemiro next game? Should he? And I know what your instant reaction is going to be. It's going to be no, but we were better in the second half with McTominay in there yesterday. I don't think McTominay is a holding midfielder, by the way. I don't. And I'm the first one to say that his role should be off the bench as a super sub. But I'm playing devil's advocate. We played better yesterday in the second half when McTominay and Evans came on. If you're saying start Evans over Maguire, surely we should be saying start McTominay over Casemiro. Or do you give Casemiro another go? Because honestly, before yesterday's game, I actually think Casemiro was having a really good run of games, and him and Mainoo were looking really good together. Yeah, he gave the ball too much for my liking, but in terms of since he came back into the team past injury to up to the game yesterday, I thought I was actually enjoying Casemiro's performances, and I was thinking, you know what, we actually really have missed him. Yesterday, you look back to that Casemiro that frustrates me, which is sloppy, slow, diving in and giving the ball away too cheaply. When he plays like he does when he's on his level, on his form, he absolutely makes it into starting 11 every day of the week. And if you watch the show that me and Ricky did, Casemiro actually has, statistically, we have our best win rate when Casemiro starts, and we have our best goals scored rate when Casemiro starts as well. We score more goals when Casemiro's in the team, and we win more games when Casemiro's in the team, if you look at it just based on stats. So, for me, I mean, people would say, would you play Amrabat over him rather than McTominay? So for me, I would still go with Casemiro, Mainoo and Bruno again. If the same thing happens that happened at Luton, where it's not working in the midfield, then you look to change it. But then you're moving into, you know, big important games like the FA Cup that we have to get through against Nottingham Forest, that away tie, the derby against City, then big decisions need to be made. I think we need stability in the team right now. I don't think we need to be chopping and changing it, to be honest. So I would start, reluctantly, I would start Casemiro again, because I did think he was really poor yesterday, purely based off how well our win record is with him in the team. Also, how he's played since coming back and seeing post-injury, since just before that Luton game. Because to be honest, Mark was talking this morning about how important Casemiro is, and he is an important player, but yesterday he was really poor in that first half. So I would start Casemiro again, but it wouldn't be an easy decision. Amrabat, he's done all right the last few appearances that he's come on to shore up a game and see out a game, but I don't think I'd trust him to start based off now. And McTominay, let's put it this way, I wouldn't be like super disappointed if I saw McTominay on the starting 11 against Fulham. I wouldn't be super disappointed. I wouldn't personally do it, but I wouldn't be super disappointed, because he did come on, he did do a job for us. And going forward, actually carrying the ball, I think McTominay's going under the radar. He's doing very well. it carrying that ball forward. He's like our only player in the team that can actually do it, to be honest with you, to actually carry the ball. We need an upgrade. We need an elite ball carrier midfielder, but McTominay is the only one that can really do it. Neil Curran says, Maguire needs to go and be a big fish in a small pond, West Ham, Everton, etc. I'd keep McTominay as an impact player. Casemiro needs to be replaced in the summer. Neil, going to be honest with you, I would be open to keeping Casemiro for one more year, but if a good offer came in for him, I would let him go, because he's not the be-all and end-all, and we need to move on and bring in somebody who's younger and fresher for the future. With you on that one. Maguire, I agree. I think the good thing about him is right now is he's built his price tag up this season, and it's perfect time to cash in the summer at the age he's at, and I think it'd be good for him as well to move on and be a starter somewhere and play week in, week out, because he's capable of it. And then in terms of McTominay, I would also be open to selling him if a good offer came in for him, because, you know, if a £40 million offer comes in for a bench player, you've got to consider that. But also, I'd be absolutely happy to keep him as an impact sub, as long as it is just an impact sub. Producer wasn't listening to me, he's clearly tuned out. I was going to do a poll on whether Casemiro should start next game. Is he listening? You are listening. I just asked, can we do a poll on whether should Casemiro start next game? And we'll just have a look. And that's kind of our end point of today, because I know, should Casemiro start next game? Because I know a lot of people are big fans of Casemiro. I know Mark's a big fan of Casemiro, but we can't hide behind the fact that he is ageing. We do need to look at replacements. But me, myself, I've said I would still start him next game purely for the stability that and the win rate that we're having under him. But he needs to improve off the back of that first half at Luton. International 2675, Scott can only start over Bruno. Yeah, I don't see McTominay as a holding midfielder, I really don't, unless obviously Mainu drops back, but then you lose a lot of what makes Mainu. For me, Mainu's a box-to-box. And then Amrabat, do you really trust him to start right now? Probably not. But he's been doing all right when he comes off the bench recently. Should Casemiro start next game? I'm going to go with yes. Let that poll run for a second. And yeah, but guys, that is looking towards the end of the show. While I let that poll run just to see what people's reaction is to it, I want to quickly say, Dan Ashworth, as the news progresses on this, I think it will progress quite quickly. I think what will happen now is Man United and Newcastle will go into a negotiation process where they negotiate a fee for Man United to pay to get Dan Ashworth out of Newcastle and avoid the gardening leave and avoid the 20 months of him not being able to work at Manchester United. And I think Sir Jim, from what Sir Jim, what he strikes me so far, based on his actions, what he came into the club, he doesn't strike me as a character that wants to mess about. He's gone in and took Omar Barada from City. We've gone in and we're taking Dan Ashworth from Newcastle, whether it's now or in the future. And we're also looking at taking Jason Wilcox from Southampton. We're looking at a Chelsea. I think we're looking at a Chelsea academy sort of scout. I think we're looking at. He's not messing about. He's coming in and he's instantly starting things. We're already drawing up plans for a new Old Trafford. He's not someone that's going to mess about. I don't think a 5 or 10 million fee is going to deter him from getting a sporting director in now. It's just all about the negotiation process, because 20 million, 15 million is ridiculous. I think it should be about 7, 8, 9 million is what we pay for Dan Ashworth. But ultimately, it's going to be so worth it from what he can provide us in the summer and what he can provide us in terms of just saving money on deals and making investments for the future. Think about if we sign a player that Dan Ashworth recommends and scouts out for us this summer, a young prospect for a really cheap fee, and then in, 5 years' time he's worth 70, 80, 90 million. You've already made that money back. I know it's in the long term, but it's huge what he can do for us. And he can do that on so many different levels. Should Casemiro start next game? 87% say yes, 13% say no. Last super chats in, I've read them out. Thank you very much. Oh wait, no, I've got one here. Michael Mayolo says, who are the current 3, 2, 1 for best players of the season so far? Dalot, Garnacho, and Højlund. Dalot, Garnacho and Højlund for me. Mainu is up there, but obviously he's only just he had an injury for a long period of time, but Mainu could definitely creep in before the end of the season. before the end of the season. But thank you everyone for your super chats. Really do appreciate it. Thank you for an amazing show. The community getting their opinion as always. It's great to see. You guys decided that you would start Casemiro still next game, but you would bring in Johnny Evans for Maguire. Let's see what Ten Hag does. I wouldn't be surprised if you see McTominay starting, but I'm in agreement with the chat today. We're on the same page. But thank you everyone for watching. Get in the comments as well. Leave me a comment of when will Man United agree this with Dan Ashworth. Guess a date. Whoever gets the date right will get a special prize. But thank you everyone. Have a lovely Monday. Start the week well. Have a good week. Every week is important now. We're getting into the year. Let's have a positive, amazing week, and I'll see you on the next one, everyone.